In the beginning, when you showed up, I was not doing this thing called marriage again. I was done. I was not, but I'm sitting like, what's he doing? Why is he here?
And when I told her, and her response was, I don't see what you see.
And on top of that, hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Red Alert Diaries with Tanya E. Hood. And you see, I have a special guest joining me. So for those of you that are just getting a chance to meet, this is my husband, Eric B. Hood. And we wanted to come on today because we wanted to share some information about how you find the strength, the courage, the wherewithal, the whatever you want to do this thing called life after divorce. Hey, baby.
What's up?
Thank you for being here.
I feel like I'm on trial.
You're not on trial. So,
Okay.
one of the things that a lot of you may not be aware, the information that I share with you all is because of conversations that he and I have on a normal basis. And there's life lesson pieces that we just do. So, we've decided in this episode to bring you in a little bit on our conversations about what do you believe you need to do to move into your next position? Because when we first had our relationship encounters, in the beginning, when you showed up, I was not doing this thing called marriage again. I was done. I was not even thinking that it was a possibility for me. Because at that time in my world, my belief about Tanya was that if the person that I had spent a third of my life with did whatever to destroy the marriage and the childishness also that I brought to that table, because we don't like to believe it and we don't want to say it, but both of us had some things. So my childish behavior, what did I do to prompt the destruction of that marriage? And if he being so close to me in my mind's eye, because we had 2 kids and a third of my adult life, he didn't want me. Who else would want me? And then you show up. And I'm sitting like, what's he doing? Why is he here? Share a little bit about your encounters with me in the beginning and how we work together to move into a better process to be with one another.
That's a lot.
It is.
So you want me to tell a story about how I first met you and I walked in the door and you kind of gave me a little snub hello?
If that's where you need to begin. But my thought is,
Yeah, yeah. The day we met, it was in the middle of the weeknight, coming to class, and I walked in. I'd never seen you before. I liked what I saw. You were kind of cute. I was like, hi. And you were like, hello. And I was like, ooh, that was kind of snubbish, but okay. So I walked in to the Williams office, who ran the office, and asked him who you were. He told me, after asking him a bunch of questions, I knew everything he knew about you. So I had some data collection going on. And from that moment on, I just started watching you. What time you get there, how you interacted, other background information about you, things like that. So I did a whole lot of investigations. And so in time and over time, we got to the point where we could speak to one another. You didn't raise your nose up at me too much anymore. You didn't do a whole lot of smiling initially, but I'm very persistent. And so I kept making opportunities arise where you would have to be closer to me, where there'd be more of an opportunity for interactions. Like when I would hold a seat for you because I noticed you would always be late. Not always, but a lot.
there was a valid reason.
Didn't say it wasn't. That's not my point. And I wasn't thinking about that. The point for me was you were late. I made sure there was a spot for you so that you could get closer to me or I could get closer to you. So, and then there was an incident where you burst out laughing in class. I'm not going to go back through all of that part. That's for another discussion if y'all want. But she burst out laughing in class. The instructor was one of those no nonsense people. And me having a certain rank in the organization, of course, I couldn't be seen doing something like that. So I was like, Tanya, what are you doing? You know, the same thing the instructor said. So she went straight under the bus like she was in an oil slick. So that's how that started. And then after you finished that world famous laugh of yours, We actually went to lunch because you invited me out. Yes, she invited me out to lunch.
Now,
You asked me, I'm telling my story. There you go. She said we were talking about partnerships, and we both agreed that we didn't have that at home. And so after she got herself together after the laugh, she said we need to go to lunch and handed me her business card, which I gladly accepted. And we had lunch. Now we went to lunch out near her job. I was already retired from working, so I think I was. I wasn't. No, I wasn't. I wasn't retired from working yet, but I had flexibility. And this may have been the only or the first time in my life I had never finished a meal, but I couldn't stop eating. I mean, I couldn't keep eating because I was looking at you and I had never looked you square in the eyes like that. And we were probably as close as almost a little further apart than we are right now. And I was like mesmerized. I was like, man, her eyes are beautiful. And I left my chicken wings on that plate. And you asked me, could you have them? You said, you gonna finish that? And I was like, no. And you ate every one of them.
I didn't want to waste food. I was raised not to waste food.
So was I. But there's another story to you in food, but we can leave that alone. Anyway, so from that point on, we got a little closer, and it got to the point where the guy who ran the office, William, was one of my best friends, and he asked me to mentor Tanya because he said she had a lot of skills and talents, and he didn't want them wasted in the organization she was in. So he asked me would I mentor her because I was the oldest person, experience-wise, that was in office with him. And he and I had gone to college together. I'd been with him, like I joined his organization like 2 years after he got started. And so I knew a lot. And again, he was my best friend. So I said, yes, definitely. I will mentor her. Man, did I not know what I was getting into. Whew. This young woman is very opinionated. She holds very strong to what she believes in. And it takes a whole lot to convince her that she ain't right. I had experience, but I had to convince her to do things our way.
Now, let's explain why, because this is where some people may find themselves in a position. I had a belief system that I was functioning under, a belief system that was guiding my life. And if you have a belief system that is not spurring you forward or giving you the life that you desire, you've got to pay better attention to what it was. He looked at me like I was crazy, but I knew what I had to do. It was time for him to go. So I packed up his things. Red alert. Is he the one? The pocket guide, the fine and love of your life, tells my story. The free chapter is available for you in the link below. Now, I was already aware because I decided I was intentional about how I would engage moving forward. So the business, that introduction to have you come out was strictly for business because that's where my mind was. The rest of it, as far as relationships are concerned, building some things, the belief for me was that I couldn't do that anymore. But I knew with every fiber of my being that I could build a good business. I could do that part. It just required skills. It just required mentorship. And I'm the type of person that is open to learn. So that's where you showed up. And as we continue to walk into that, give us a little more insight about your belief as you were walking through, because I'm not the only one that walked into this new relationship, how on the heels of being divorced.
We talking business now, we talking
We're going to
relationship.
switch a little bit to relationship because our personal and professional often interchanges.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm very confident in who I am. I know that I'm a good person. However, I also know that people that are good with big, beautiful hearts often get taken advantage of. And I had experienced that on more than one occasion. But the normal tendency is to harden your heart. And I tried that, but it didn't feel natural. That's not who I am. And so I couldn't do that. So unlike the mindset that you said you had about, I'm not going to do this again, I couldn't adopt that one because that's not what God wanted me to do. So I had to learn how to move forward, but protect my heart at the same time. The stronger you are within yourself and your faith will help you get to that point because it's not easy. Because pain is not a good feeling. And to keep putting yourself out there, knowing you have that kind of heart, knowing that the people that won't appreciate you and all that sort of thing, makes you a little gun shy. But nonetheless, there's so much love in me, I couldn't keep it to myself, and I knew that. I've got to share it. So I had to find a way. So it's trial and error, whatever you want to call it. So I knew I was a good person. I knew I didn't want to be by myself. I wasn't pressed. I just knew how God had made me up. So I needed to be with somebody I could share this love with because somebody deserved to get this right here. That was my mindset. Anyway, that's how I went at it. So I mean, I took business seriously, and it was through the mentoring you that I got to know you, which is important. You know, a lot of people always talk about, love at first sight and this and that. Yeah, that's that physical part. But you at some point have to get to know the individual for a relationship to really flourish. And I believe that with everything in me. So I took my time. I got more data on you because as I'm mentoring you, I got to see how you interacted about different things. Then we became spiritual buddies.
Mm-hmm.
And, we shared scriptures all the time. And it was times where I needed it and you would lift me up and then I would lift you up. And then we became buddies. And it was still in the mentoring state, but through that mentoring, we developed a relationship and we became good friends. And that part I valued more so than anything else because if I can't be your friend, what else can I gotta have my friend.
So let's pause there for a second because here's something to share. When you're creating your belief systems about who you are and you go through a traumatic experience like a divorce, as you have heard, everybody has a different way that they process that. My process was, I'm not doing this again. So to guard my heart, I hardened it a little bit, but there was an opening because I know I'm designed to be a good friend. His process was, I cannot just be hard like that, but I've got to put measures in place to guard me. Be clear about where you are and what you believe so that you know what strategies and insight that you need to put in place. So that's one of the things that we want to give some insight about belief. But here's another piece that you were just sharing. If we're going to start new relationships, we complicate this. Don't complicate this. It was friendship. I had a wall up to keep my heart safe. And in order for you to get through, especially if you see some things, because he saw a relationship long before I did, y'all. This was not happening. But the friendship part gave me an opportunity to know where I could and could not be safe. Because when you have friends, you know how much you can open up with your friends. When you have friends, your friends give you a different breath of how you can be present when you are friends. That can expand inside of your relationships. And if you start there, because many of you have heard me share, just be friends first. Don't complicate it. So let's walk into the beliefs about the beginning elements of relationships.
Okay, let's talk about that friend thing, which is the beginning for me.
Okay.
A lot of people make the mistake, in my opinion, of believing that every person that appears to be a friend or they would like to be a friend is a genuine friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's a mistake because there are a lot of people. You've heard the phrase "a wolf in sheep's clothing," and in your book, Red Alert is he the one. You talk about the representative.
Yeah.
As I've grown older, I've noticed that there are a lot of people who are very good at portraying the image that they believe other people want to see. Very good at it. They could probably get an Oscar, but only when you're diligent in taking your time and seeing that person at all seasons and seeing how consistent they are, will you ever really have a chance to find out whether they're genuine or not. Some of these people can portray this role for 2 or 3 months. Some can do it for 6 months. Some can do it for a year. Depends on what their desire is, their goal, and what they're trying to accomplish with the individual that they're pulling the wool over their eyes. So that's very important. And one thing about me is what you see is what you get. If I like it, you know. If I don't, you know. My face will let you know. My words will let you know. And I was consistent. I saw something in Tanya that I liked. I never pushed her. I never pressed her out about anything. I let one thing call at a time. I let things come to me. But when I knew that God, because he told me this was mine, I told her we were best friends. You share things with your best friend. And when I told her Ooh-wee. I was in my car. I don't know. She's probably at home. I pulled over on the side of the road because we were having a deep conversation and I didn't want to be distracted, from driving. And I just told her, I said, I don't know how. This is my favorite line with her. Don't know when, but we're going to be together. And her response was, I don't see what you see. But man, I felt like I was in a firing line. And so I calmly said to her, you don't have to see what I saw. I'm telling you what God showed me. And then she paused. And so I backed away a little bit, trying to be a good friend. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll be the best friend to you that I can be. But I'm no longer going to try to help you with that other situation that you were dealing with. I can't do that any longer. And I left it alone.
And that part is a piece that I had to come to an understanding. When you are making adjustments in how you're dealing with relationships, if someone sees something in that relationship that you don't see, it's okay. Because I also recognized that even though I didn't see what he saw, I had to take that data. And this is what I've shared in some previous episodes. Because this is what my grandmama told me. When people give you stuff, you take the meat, you toss the bones. And if you have some information and you're not quite sure what to do with it, let it simmer for a minute. Because what needs to come to light will come to light. So I didn't understand what he was saying because, again, my belief was that I won't be a wife again. My belief was that no one would want to be with me. And he showed up in a space and place where my ex was still in and out, doing whatever, causing the chaos that my soul was still warring with. And on top of that, I had two little people by some other man. Who's going to want to come in? To all of that was my belief. But what I had to learn is that when there's a belief system that you are living in and there's someone else with a different one, if you open yourself up to a different perspective, you can get a shifting that can support basic values because our beliefs are formed from the values that we possess. Let's go a little bit deeper with that because the thing that helped me get a little bit better later was that we had the same belief system and our values. Your value for friendship, your value for loyalty, your value for support, your value to serve. That is what gave me an opportunity to say, okay, even though I don't believe he would be with me and my babies, I value the God he serves, the heart he has, and what he brings to the table is similar to those core values that I possess.
Okay, here's another one. Seeing is believing, showing is knowing. Consistency is what I brought. My words always match my actions. Always, if I told you I was going to do something, I did it. If I told you no, it was no. And you could see that I had a higher being guiding me through our conversations. There were times when I would share something with you and you'd be like, God just told me that. How'd you know that? You said I was eavesdropping on your conversation. But I ascertained this. This is my thought. Perhaps God had shared things with me and then shared it with you. And so when I came out with it, you were already prepared to hear it because he had shared it with you already. That's what I say. I ain't do no eavesdropping. That wasn't part of my investigative work.
So here's a conversation that he's sharing. In the beginning of our relationship, what started to morph it for me and change my belief was that I believe in a God that is greater than I. When you're walking through some situations and you have a lower level of thinking, you have to find a higher level of thinking in order for you to change your direction because you cannot get through the situation that you're in with your current thinking. To get over there, you need to think a little bit more for over there. And God was my anchor at that point to reset my life in the chaos of my divorce. So in the aftermath of all of that stuff showing up, I became more in tune to God's word for me. So initially, when he made a statement what God said, and I'm like, oh, I have rebuilt my relationship. I know. But here's the thing. God only reveals to you pieces that you're ready to be open to receive.
True.
When I share, some of you know, I make the comment, God has an ocean-sized element of love, but if all you can handle is a thimble, he'll let you take your thimble. And if you decide that you want to use something else to get a little more of what he once poured into you, when you change that perspective from a thimble-sized thought to, let's say, a bucket-sized container, you can now get more. You can now receive more, and there'll be greater insight. So what God was giving me, the scriptures that he gave me in my quiet time, his opportunity to open up my belief system that there was something greater. Tanya, stop bringing me your thimble, because your belief in what love looks like is not how I designed you. Tanya, stop bringing me your thimble, because what you perceive as the ability to have you loved, I have greater. So since you don't want the ocean, here's a little more to make it bigger so that you can bring a bucket. And so when Eric shared the same scripture that the God I knew loved me, I opened up the belief that if God, who I know loves me, will share this information with you, maybe it's all right.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Let me share something else that just came to me while you were speaking. I got to figure out how to say this so it's PG.
Please, because all of this is a clean episode.
In that time period of being hurt continuously over and over and over again, one way or another, it starts stacking up. And I'm human. No matter how tough you think you are at times, you can still have a little nick here and there. They add up, little aches and pains. I told God, because I knew how he made me. I looked over my whole life and I was like, I know I'm a good dude. I look out for people. I don't try to hurt nobody. Don't get me wrong. It's another side, but my intentions. And so I kind of, since it's my father, my heavenly father, I talk to him like I'm talking to you. And I said, Lord, if you ever want me to love again, make it real clear. Because if I don't see it coming, I'm liable to go back to some of them old ways and be the biggest I can be. Yeah. Well, I got smacked upside the back of my head. Because how dare I tell him something like that? Because that's not what he wanted from me. And speaking of beliefs and relationships and all of this, I truly believe with everything that's in me that God has somebody for everybody. But since the males are his sons and the females are his daughters, he wants the best for all of his children. So he's got to prepare the right man for his daughters and prepare the right daughters for his sons. And that could take time. One could be further along in their development than the other, but he's got to make the perfect match. So he's got to groom each and then plant the seeds in them and correct a few things here and correct a few things there within them so that see what wives do? So that they just can't leave stuff alone. But it's okay. I love her anyway. Bless her heart. Anyway, so that's a dig. She's gonna give me later for that one, y'all. But anyway, I really believe that God has to prepare us, heart, mind, and soul, for his child of the opposite sex. And once he's done that and got us both where he wants us, he'll start intertwining that relationship. Mm-hmm. But then that's just the beginning. Then he continues as we stay in him, learning, talking to him. He makes it better and better and better and better, which is what he wants anyway. But it's a growth, progression, progress. You don't get it all overnight. You have to stay with him, keep trusting, keep believing, keep loving. And as you progress, like from one grade level to the next, he gives you a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. But you never stop growing. You never stop learning. So it's a lifelong process, but it starts with God. What he instills in you, what he expects of you, what he shares with you that he wants you to do with his daughter, with his son, to honor him.
Indeed. And so, I can't think of anything else right now. I think that's good. And so for today, if you don't remember anything else we've shared with you today, here's the one thing we want you to know. What you believe will help you at one level. But if it's not supporting you to getting to where you want to go emotionally, professionally, then you have to change your perspective and be open to something new and different, because your belief is how you are driving your behavior. Just make certain that your belief truly aligns with your core values. Is there anything else you want to share with them before we go?
I think that's important what you just said. You know, you have to know yourself. Be honest with yourself. Learn to love yourself first. Because Tanya didn't feel loved anymore, that she was capable of being loved, because she had allowed circumstances and a representative to take some of her own self-worth and self-love away. She had to get that back. If you do nothing else, love yourself first. You don't have to beat yourself upside the head and jump on top of mountains. And you don't have to do all of that. But know that you're loved by your Heavenly Father, or being higher than yourself. Love yourself. And that way you open up yourself to be loved by somebody else, because they'll see it. They'll see the joy come out of you because you have that self-love. They'll see all that excitement in you because you know you're a good person and you just bring that excitement. Tanya was a magnet to me. Once I got to know her and found out how jovial she can be when she let those walk, and it was a serious wall. It was thick.
Okay.
Real thick, like multiple layers. But guess what? In God's strength, I was able to chip away through those walls by being consistent, by being who God made me to be. And eventually, a hole opened up and the light shone through. And that's where it starts. But because I had faith and confidence in myself as being a good guy and knowing what I wanted and what I deserved and was willing to fight for it, God blessed me with this crazy woman. But again, see the smiles and things that you all see when she talks to you guys all the time? That wasn't happening with her because she wasn't happy. But now she does those things, and it makes me happy when I see her happy. That's why I pick with her so much, because she has a big, beautiful smile. And I love that. I don't like to see her frowned up. But if I see her frowning or she don't sound a certain way, big babe, what's wrong? So I got to get it back.
That's true.
That's my job. And I take that very seriously. So love yourselves so that you'll make the opportunities more available for somebody else to love you. And I think you'll be fine. Thanks for having me again today, guys. I love being on here with you guys from time to time.
And if anything that we have shared with you today resonates with you, then it's time to reset. So like, comment, and share this information with others so that they can get some insight poured in them as well. And if you want someone to join you on the journey, feel free to go to my website, TanyaEhood.com. There you can click under the Work With Me tab and see the various ways that we can work with one another. And if you are on YouTube, you can join me live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we can continue this conversation or we can start a new one. This is Tanya E. Hood, walking in my purpose. I want you to do the same.